Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Zalits, and today I'm finally unveiling my personal tier list that I made for you guys, because I felt like there just weren't enough of these being made for the global side of DFFOO. Because I mean, you can Google search like 5 bajillion JP tier lists, but literally there's only like a handful of tier lists that exist for the global version, and the ones that do, like, they're pretty outdated. Aside from a few sites that have pretty recent tier lists. But anyways, I just want to give a small disclaimer before we jump into this, that this is my personal tier list for how I see the game based on my own experiences while playing solo and in multiplayer. By me explaining my tier list, I'm in no way trying to tell you what to play. I just simply made this to show you guys what I actually think is good or bad in the current state of the game. And also, please remember that metas are what make tier lists. So a lot of my choices for this list are based on the current meta that we're actually in, which is speed. With all that being said, let's go ahead and do the intro thing and then jump into this already.
But it's gonna be blue skies for you and I. We'll step out of the shadows and walk into the light. Yeah, it's gonna be blue skies for you and I.
Okay, so here we are, and this is the tier list. Okay, everything you see here is finalized for me for this month. Now, my intentions for this tier list are to go about updating it every month, not every other month, every month. And I made this video on the 13th, or not this. I made this tier list on the 13th, so I'll probably, like, usually around that time, expect to see another one of these tier lists updated. So let me talk a little bit about what the actual tiers mean to me. Okay. So I have here on the right side, before that, real quick, I have here on the right side my my write-up for each character and what the tier lists mean on the DFFOO forums. I'll leave a link to that down below, like always. Shout out to everybody there. You guys are all great. I just have it here as a reference point, so that as I'm going about reading each character and what's good and bad about them, and why they're good and why they're where they are, I just have it there as a reference, so you can see it on screen at the same time as I'm explaining it to you here. So, anyways, SS tier. What do I actually think it means? It's the tier for the strongest characters that I think are in the game right now. All these characters, these 4 characters right here, Lightning, Echo, Vaughn, and Squall, hands down, like, nobody can deny, are like the most prevalent. Like, you can bring these guys to almost anything, and you'll succeed with like no trouble whatsoever, because they all, like, Lightning, if you're solo, even in multiplayer, it doesn't matter. Like, she's good. Echo, strongest bravery battery, at least to me, in my opinion anyways. Not just because I use her or anything like that, but it's just from what I've seen so far. All the bravery batteries just don't even add up to what she can do so far. And Vaughn, we already know he got a 35 CP. He was already ridiculously strong before. I mean, he fell off a little bit because everybody else was starting to get their 35 CP, but he's gotten it now, and well, what else is there to say? He's godly. And then Squall, once he got his 35 CP for his Renzo Kukin, like, he became really strong too. So, but anyways, moving on. S tier. What does S tier mean to me? S tier is pretty much for as it would normally be. Like, these characters are all very strong. However, I don't feel as though that they're strong enough to be an SS tier. They all have great tools in their kit to make them good, but they aren't SS tier good. Like, they can't outshine the people that are in SS tier, and that's why they're in S tier right now. And then A tier. What do I think A tier is? And I have them, I can scroll down through this. Like, you see, I have it all written out here, guys. And then in A tier, like, these are people that are like generally used by a lot of people, but they aren't. and they're great for content. They're like, if you have these characters and you were able to get their stuff, that's great. Like, they'll help you get through anything. Like, they have good stuff in their toolkits to help you with harder content. This usually goes to like buffers, debuffers, and If you have a semi-strong HP attacker, this is usually where this is where I see that they all fit in. And then B tier, I feel is more like it's starting to get into like the niche category. So let's scroll down here to the B. Now, I wouldn't say that these guys are niche by any means, but I just feel like they're not super strong as of yet in the content. All right, so like they're niche in a way, but they're stronger than just being niche. You know, like looking at Vanille, like, you know, she's niche because she can dispel, and you know there's very little things that in this game that require a dispel, but she also performs well as a bravery battery. If you don't have one, if you don't have any gear for one of the stronger bravery batteries, she can fill in that role. And then you have like a Laguna, for example, like, you know, he's a damn good debuffer, you know what I mean? He's very good at debuffing. That's his role. He's a debuffer. But because he doesn't have his 35 CP, you know, he can't really stack up to, you know, the likes of, like, you know, anybody else that's up here in SS and S tier. Because Tidus and Seymour can do his job and have HP attacks, and, you know, they just do it better at this point. But that's not to say that they'll stay here, you know what I mean? Like, every tier list changes with time, but, you know, that's just pretty much how it is. And then we keep going down the list to C tier, and now this is literally the niche territory here. Because it's like all these characters, like, they don't really see much use outside of, oh, hey, I need something for this particular boss that you know, whatever my team I have right now can't do. Wait, I just confused myself. Anyways, what I mean is, you're only going to be bringing these guys in if the team that you have currently, like the team setup that you're using right now currently, can't perform an act that these guys can well. Let me give you an example to explain what I mean here. So, like for example, when I posted this tier list on the forums, a lot of people were like, "Oh, why isn't Bart's higher? Bart's is definitely better than, like, you know, Lael and Zidane, because he can shave bravery, and he has a crazy strong, you know, he's crazy strong with his missile because he can cut the bravery in half." Yeah, you know, that's and, you know, my counter argument to that is, like, yeah, that's an amazing toolkit, or an amazing kit. Like, you know, he's meant for shaving bravery like no other. Don't get me wrong, he's a very strong shaver. But right now in the game, how many bosses actually require you to need that much bravery shaving to begin with? The only, like, until recently, like, we just got a boss like the Aerith co-op event boss. Like this, he's been like the only boss that I've seen so far that actually that would require somebody to even bring up Bart's, and it's not even that serious. You know what I mean? Like, you can bring many other different characters that can do his job, but I mean, like, it's stuff like that. It's like, why why would I bump him up in the tier list when he's only being used for something like that? It just makes no sense. You know, in general, you're gonna just keep bringing, like, you know, your S tiers or your A tiers and your SS tiers in like 90% of the cases anyways. So why would you bring Bart's when they can do his job while doing HP attacks at the same time? Or, you know, so you get what I'm saying? So that's why these characters are in this category. Like, they're not particularly strong by any means. Like, they have their uses and their places in the game, but I don't think right now is that time for any of them just yet. If they, you know, going into the future, they probably will have, you know, more time to shine, but it's definitely not right now. And then D tier is these are the characters that are, like, you know, you like never see any of these guys ever, mostly because they're either weak or they have, like, a niche that is super neat, that is so super niche that they're not even worth using in any of the content that we have going on right now. So, like, this is basically just that category, and I won't be going into too much detail about why these characters, like, you know, I think it's starting from, like, B, no, not even, I mean, I can explain B tier a bit better, but C and down, like, I go into less detail about these guys because I feel like if you're looking at this list and you're looking at tier lists in general, like, you should already know, like, what to expect and what, like, why these guys are low tier to begin with. But D tier is one of those special cases where it's like you should really know why these guys are here. Like you never see them, you never use them, and if you do use them, you already know how difficult. Not I want to say how difficult things can be, but how bad in general they are to be using on a team comp. Like that's not to say that they're horrible, because they all have their uses in if you're doing something. Like if you're doing like trials of Ifrit, like referring to the video that I posted yesterday. If you're doing trials of Ifrit and you need a fire damage dealer, you could definitely bring Vivi, but I mean, why would you bring Vivi when you can just bring Papalymo and he'll do like 3 times the damage that Vivi can do? You know what I mean? It's stuff like that is just like it just makes no sense. But you guys should already know like what to expect from D tier. And then F tier, well, I'm not even gonna say anything. Like everybody knows why these guys are F tier. Like they're hated. I don't want to say hated. Maybe Yuffie. Hate Yuffie. I'm not gonna say why because I don't. But hate Yuffie. And Shadow, like these guys are they're just there. They literally are beyond useless at this point. You could try and say whatever you want to save them or to protect them in your own little world, but it just doesn't. They're just not good. Like I've seen a couple people trying to defend them from them being weak, but it's no, just stop. They're not good. Stop encouraging people to use these characters in co-ops, please. Like I'm tired of going into like Aerith event or or Ashes event who just recently went away last night. Like I'm tired of seeing these Yuffies come out of nowhere trying to do stuff to the. You're not gonna do any damage. Like stop, just stop, please. Stop encouraging these guys, please. And then we have the triple S tier. Now this tier it goes without saying. These are the absolute best characters in the game. They will literally. Matter of fact, they are so good that they have transcended into godhood. They are absolute legends that don't even belong on your team because you don't deserve to be in their presence. You know what I mean? So I just won't even touch I just won't even touch these two. Saz and Waka. I'm not even gonna touch these two. They're so legendary, so godly. I don't even have it in me to discuss these two. They're just that good. All right. So without further ado, let's let's jump into the descriptions for each of these characters. Okay. So heading back on up to the top here, we're going to be looking at lightning. Like, why is lightning in SS tier? Okay, because a lot of people argue that lightning is a turn eater. Oh, I hate lightning because she just steals so many turns. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Look, a lot of that hate comes from the fact that most people don't really know that if you're going into multiplayer, you should probably change up your ability or your passives, I should say, not your abilities, the passives, because if you equipped a lot of her passives, like you'll come to notice if you actually sit there and look at them, a lot of them say turn rate plus, and she even has a passive that says she gets even more turn rate based on your skill usage. But if you actually unequip that passive, like she's actually just as normal as anybody else in the triple S category. But most people don't know that. Most people just, oh hey, I can equip this here, so I'm gonna put it on. But no, in reality, like a good lightning user will know the difference between having her built for co-op and for solo. If you're in solo, you want to have all that stuff because you don't want bosses to have any more turns. Like you want to keep stealing as many turns as possible so that you can kill the boss without running into any complications of the boss using abilities. You want to give the boss as little turns as possible. So with that, like where does she fit onto your team? Like she can fit onto any team realistically. And I'm sure that all of you know or have heard, and you're probably like, if you haven't heard of it, or you're probably wondering like what is Litigo? You heard of it somewhere, somebody was talking about it. What is it? What is it exactly? Okay, so basically it's a team composition That is Lightning, Tidus, and Eiko. The holy trinity right here. You know, these three right here, the holy trinity. So these three, essentially what they do is, you know, you have Lightning as the main source of damage, you have Tidus as a debuffer on top of doing a lot of damage and being fast, and Eiko as the bravery battery to help, you know, keep them at max bravery, to keep pumping out damage like over and over and over. So basically, their team makeup makes up most of what the speed meta is. Like, these three are just so quick that they can kill content like faster than any other team comp that there is. Like, I mean, like, nobody can deny that. Like, these three, like, literally, like, you take them into any kind of content, unless you have, you know, you have like physical resistance, like, you know, Vanilla Lost Chapter or something like that, and they'll destroy it without any problems. Like, trust me, if you try it, you know, or if you watch any videos, you would know. It's that easy. It's really, it's a very strong team composition. And then like, the reason that I put her in SS tier, I mean, I'll talk about Prish later, because I know a lot of people are going to ask me, like, why is Prish not SS tier? Actually, you know, I'll save that for Prish. I'll save that for Prish's discussion. She's faster than Prish. She can get more turns than Prish. She can maybe not do as much bravery damage as Prish, but overall, in a longer turn, in a maybe not a longer fight, but maybe well, definitely in a shorter fight, or, you know, like a boss that's not super tanky, that has elemental resistances or physical resistances, Lightning will definitely beat her out in damage overall. But anyways, that's enough for Lightning. That's how I feel. Like, you know, because she fits so well onto arguably the best team in the game, and the fact that she's really fast and she can carry, because she's so fast, at least solo, now maybe not in co-op, but definitely solo, that's why she's an SS tier. Okay, and then Eiko. Let's move on to Eiko. And now Eiko, you know, I love Eiko, you know what I mean? Like, but that's not influencing any of the reason why she's an SS tier. Eiko is actually really, she's just super strong. Like, before her 35 CP came out, she was okay, you know what I mean? Like, she helped me get through all sorts of content because she had a great heal, she had great bravery. She was not a great bravery battery. She was an okay bravery battery. She didn't give that much bravery back, but she was okay. But now, like, she like, not only does she have like her 12 turn, you know, regen, attack up, and what was it, max bravery up, which is amazing, by the way, because not many characters have anything like that. It just turns her super strong, especially when she's running with some of these characters that don't have the max bravery up. And then on top of that, what makes her even better is the fact that she, like, her 35 CP makes her faster and gives her more turn rate on her smites, which is what she's lacking overall. Her speed is very, very, very low, so her getting extra speed makes her amazing. Okay, so that's pretty much why. And then on top of that, like, you know, she has her bravery battery relies on her attack, which is, you know, it's good. Like, you know, she, like, the coefficient for getting, like, for her attack stat converted into bravery is really high. Like, you honestly can, how can it, you can get away with not having good art, like, without having any Mighty Smite star artifacts, just by having a bunch of, like, attack artifacts. Like, you can definitely get away with that, and she'll still be amazing. So before that, no way. There's no way. But now, yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much why. Like, her burst bravery gains, even though she only has 6 uses for her actual bravery battery move, it still is leaps and bounds ahead of other characters that and this, a lot of this also comes from the fact that we're in the speed meta. You're trying to kill stuff as fast as possible. She'll give you the fastest results over any other bravery battery right now. Okay, and I'll you know, as we move down the list and I talk about some of these other characters, these other bravery batteries, like in A tier, I'll explain why they're just not as up to par with Eiko as not as up to par as Eiko in general. So moving on, we're going on to Vaughn. Now, I explained this previously. Vaughn was in a pickle for a long time. He started seeing less and less use because he started off really strong. Like, you know, his two-part bravery attack, or bravery plus HP attacks, were extremely strong. But then once the 35 CP started to roll out, he became unwanted, and like nobody really used him anymore. But then now recently with his 35 CP, it fixed all his problems. Like, you know, he was already strong, but he just wasn't strong enough to fit onto a team, because, you know, you had people like Squall and Tidus and, you know, Prish and Lightning. You know, it's just like they were all so, like, you know, really like way stronger than he was beforehand. Before his 35 CP, I probably would have put him somewhere like in B8 or A or B range, because he was strong, but he just wasn't as strong. And it was like his 35 CP made him into, you know, God mode. Like he can literally, you know, he's the only person so far that can just burst up to like, you know, 16k in a 2-part attack, back to back. You know what I mean? Like he just does that much damage. Like normally those numbers we'd see like in like launches or something like that, but now he can just do that by himself. So it's you know what I mean? He's crazy strong. But I don't really have to explain him much, because if you've done multiplayer in the last like 2 weeks, like, you know why Vaughn is, you know, double S tier. Like, he's super strong. And then and Squall, pretty much like he's the same way. He's the same exact thing as Vaughn. He started off strong, fell off because, you know, his Renzokuken wasn't the strongest HP attack, but now that he got his cutting trigger, it gave him some crazy buffs. Like, you know, he got the max bravery up that bumps his max bravery by like 1,000, some crazy number like that. So, and on top of that, the damage that he can do, like his Renzokuken can cap him out almost guaranteed if you have the right artifact. So you know, he's just extremely strong in the HP damage department. He's probably second overall to Vaughn, if we're talking about HP damage dealers right now. So let's move on down to the S tier. And also, I just want to clarify this. Their order in these rows have absolutely nothing to do with where I think they belong in S tier, or in their tiers. Like, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. They're just there because that's the way that I put them in. Because when I was making this list, you know, I was just cutting them out and putting them in one by one, and that's just where they fell. It's like, by no means am I saying that Tidus is any better than Cecil, Prish, you know, Papalymo, Seymour, or Cloud. Like, no, they're just in this tier because they're there. It has absolutely nothing to do with, like, you know, oh, Tidus is at the top of S tier because he can almost belong to SS. No, it has nothing to do with that. If anything, if it was like that, I would put Tidus like towards the end, because Tidus is realistically, even though he's my favorite character, he's realistically between A and S tier, somewhere in there. But he's definitely not. He's definitely not, you know, to be almost an SS tier. Like, no. They're just in this particular way, or organized in this particular way, because I was just cutting them out and putting them on to try and just get this out. You know what I mean? But anyways, enough with that. So why is Tidus in S tier? Okay. Like, Tidus, like yeah, when he first came out, he was amazing. Like, Tidus was like first of his kind, like damage wise. Like, he was like amazing, like super strong. Like, you know, he was like he was like the fastest, you know, character that we've gotten so far. He was doing like crazy numbers, but then after a while we started to realize like he had a lot of faults. Like, you know, he's very artifact reliant. He needs his 35 CP weapon. He needs a lot of things to make him even worth using in the current meta. Like, if you don't have any of his stuff, like, he's generally useless. But because this tier list is made with the fact that, like, you know, I made it in the image that every character has their best setup no matter what. So that's why he's an S tier. If he gets all his, you know, his gear and everything properly, like, he becomes S tier. Like, he's super strong. He's amazing. But, you know, he just the one issue that I have with him is that he just doesn't have a lot of max bravery. Like, his max bravery is very low. Like, he deals a lot of damage, a lot of bravery damage, but his max bravery is just extremely low, and that's like the most off-putting thing about him, because you can do a lot of damage with him, but then it just goes straight to the trash, because it just doesn't it doesn't go anywhere. Like, his max bravery cap is very low, so you have to figure out a balance between artifacting him with max bravery and attack and skills, because that's where he shines. Like, you need those things. And that's another reason why he pairs really well with Eiko, because she can actually buff his max bravery up, or she can actually buff him with max bravery up. So that's why, you know, that's why he's S tier. If he had more bravery, or if he had a way to increase his bravery stat or his max bravery stat overall, he would probably be an SS tier in my opinion. But because of that, like, that's his biggest flaw, and he has to be an S tier because of that. Well, so I would put him somewhere between. If I honestly had to choose, I would put him between A. I would probably put him at A+. But because there is no A+ on this list, I have to put him in S tier. So, Cecil. What do I gotta say? Like, this, you know, this dude, Cecil, he is a god in multiplayer. Everybody knows this. Nobody can deny it. Like, if you got 3 Cecils on your team, you're gonna have like a score of 600,000 plus. You're gonna finish your events in like 2 runs. What else has to be said about this guy? He's amazing. But there's a big problem that I have with him, and it's the reason why I don't want to put him in SS tier yet, anyways. And it's the fact that he doesn't have an HP attack on any of his abilities. I know that in the future he gets an HP attack on his launch. The what's it called? I think I wrote it here somewhere. His Valiant Blow. There we go. I know he gets an HP attack on that way later on during the 60s. I think it's in the 60s. He gets that, and he becomes really good. He becomes even better than he is now. And then at that point, he'd probably become SS tier. But right now, because of that, realistically, I can't put him in SS tier for that simple fact. But other than that, like, you put him on a team that can that can really make him shine, like especially solo. Like, you know, you bring your own Cecil, and you bring a friend's Cecil, and you have double Cecil with like a bravery battery. You're gonna clear those. You're gonna clear the missions like nothing. They're gonna be super easy because you can just keep launching, especially during summons or something like that. But you know what I mean? Like, he shines when there's another Cecil somewhere in the party or in his group. Like, you know, that's really where he shines. But other than that, like, I mean, like I said, he if he had his bravery plus HP attack, it would definitely be SS tier. But since he doesn't, have to put him in S tier. Okay, so moving on to Prish. So I know, like, she's like the most controversial character that I have on this list, because a lot of people believe that she should be an SS tier, and you know, but that's not the way that I see her. You know, I believe that she's an S tier for one sole reason, and it's and let me say that she's very strong. She's extremely strong. Okay, guys. Like, I'm not doubting her damage potential at all. This has nothing to do with her damage output. It's just the fact that she doesn't have a bravery plus HP attack, so it takes her a little longer to ramp up than I would like. And some people don't have a problem with that, but it's like, you know, when it comes to like co-op or, you know, multiplayer, if you're not running with a bravery battery, if you're just running with a bunch of buffers, it can really suck for her to get to max bravery. Usually, it can, if you don't have a battery with you or running with you, it can literally take 2 to 3 turns for her to reach her huge max bravery cap. But if you do, like, I mean, she becomes very strong, but it's because of that fact that she can't, if she is solo, she can't reach that bravery cap without taking 2 to 3 turns. However, Lightning can. You know, Lightning uses a Spark Strike and into a Flourish of Steel, and she's already capped out. She's probably over capped already by the time she even gets to Flourish of Steel. But Prish, you know, she has to like use her twirling fist into the Holy Fire Fist, and then into an HP attack. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. If she was able to do that HP attack before, in the turn before, I wouldn't have a problem with her being SS tier. And I mean, I know that she gets bravery plus HP attacks later on, so she'll definitely be raised up later. But as it stands right now, I just think that Lightning can do her job better, and I feel like they're literally doing the same job. However, because Prish can cover 3 elemental attributes, if the bosses have a weakness, Prish will obviously be a lot stronger than Lightning is. You know, when it comes to that kind of thing. So that's where I stand on Prish. I don't think she's a bad character by any means. I know that she's strong, trust me. But it's just because of that one glaring flaw, similar to Cecil, because she doesn't have a channel into those HP attacks. I just can't put her in SS tier. Moving on. Now, Papalimo. Like, where do I even begin with this guy? Like, Papalimo is amazing. Okay, he is without a doubt one of the strongest mages in the game right now. Like, he is amazingly strong. Okay, but he has, like, okay, look. I mean, let me just say it like this: Papalymo does a lot of damage. Okay, but he has a lot of flaws that people overlook when they look at his character kit as a whole. Yes, he is extremely strong. He does a lot of damage, but for one, his max bravery is really low. Really low max bravery. It sucks. Everybody knows this. You use Umbral Ice, you're probably sitting on like 5,500 max bravery. You use Astral Fire, you're probably up to like 6,000 something, or more depending on your artifacts. And it's like you have to sacrifice damage artifacts for max bravery artifacts, which sucks overall. In general, it's the same with Tidus. But on top of that, he's just pure damage. You know what I mean, guys? Yeah, he doesn't have any kind of special debuffs. His passives don't really do much to help him in his max bravery, with his max bravery, which is his biggest flaw. Like, he has too many problems for me to put in to SS tier. Like, he's very strong. He can definitely, and he also has like really long turn. His buffs have a lot of turns on them, so he can definitely last for some time into a boss fight or into any kind of fight in general. But because he doesn't provide anything for his team other than damage, and he has a very low bravery cap, I can't put him into SS tier for those things. Like, he's very good, and I love the guy, but he's those flaws just like it hinders his damage potential, and that's the problem for me. Okay, anyways, moving on to Seymour. I hate this guy. I didn't like him in Final Fantasy X. I don't like him in this game. All right, so why is Seymour in S tier? Why is this trash can in S tier? Okay, look. I don't know, like, a lot of people underestimate how strong Seymour actually is, and even I underestimated him until recently when I started to see how strong Seymour actually was. Now, if it wasn't because Ashe joined the game, like a character like Ashe, if it wasn't because of somebody like her, I probably wouldn't have seen Seymour as that strong. But it really wasn't until Ashe's event that I started to see how powerful Seymour was as a character in general. Like, Seymour, overall, Seymour is actually really, he's actually stronger than Tidus. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he's actually stronger than Tidus when it comes to damage. And he's just as, I don't want to say just as fast, but he can actually keep up with Tidus' speed fairly well. Like, anybody that's played Final Fantasy X know that the Guado are actually really fast. Like, they're super, for some reason they can just sprint. They're just super fast. It's crazy, but anyways, and he has a lot of the flaws that Tidus has, his kit fixes, or his weapons fix, and that's why he's, I would say, overall stronger than Tidus. Like, if Tidus was an A+ tier, Seymour is definitely S tier. Like, you know what I mean? That's the way it is. His weapons give him max bravery up, which Tidus doesn't have. Like, if Tidus had a max bravery up, he'd be amazing. But Seymour actually gets it, and and his bravery cap is actually pretty high. Like, he actually has a lot of max bravery. Like, it's, I think on his stat sheet, like, he's actually max bravery. Like, his max bravery is like a max stat, like a 5 star. But anyways, he also has elemental typing coverage with his I don't know, what is that? The chain spell ability. Like, he can cover some elemental attribute, or he can cover some elements with that as well. I think it's like fire, frost, and lightning, something like that. But he can cover that stuff. So he, like, when it comes to some bosses, like, he can actually get a lot of weakness hits with that thing, and it also raises his turn rate. So he's pretty fast when it comes to that. And also, going back to what I was saying about the buffers, like, Ashe being in the game now, like, if you run Seymour with, like, an Ashe, like, his damage potential is, like, whoa, my god. Like, he does a lot of damage, guys. Like, Cloud. I'm looking at his picture and I said Cloud. Seymour does some crazy damage when he has, like, a buffer, like a magic buffer on his team, like Ashe. So, definitely, like, if you were if you were like giving Seymour any kind of slack, definitely look over, like, you know, next time you play, try and look at the next Seymour you see, and you'll realize how strong he actually is. Or if you even have a Seymour that you've had in your pocket, like, you know, you got his weapons because you were pulling for Terra's, you know, 35 CP, and you got his weapons and stuff like that. Try running him with Ashe if you got her 15 CP, and you'll see just how amazing he actually can be. Like, Seymour is very strong, guys. I highly recommend you put him on here. Highly recommend you use him if you do have him. Like, he can be a very, very strong asset to your team. And now let's move on to Cloud. Everybody's favorite plus. That's true, dude. I'm writing this and I'm laughing about it, but it's like so many people love this character, and for good reason. Like, you know, Cloud is actually very, very strong. Like, he's a very, very good character. You know, his toolkit is absolutely amazing. Like, he brings with him so much utility. It's not even funny. Like, you know, he has paralysis. He has a launch. He can clear debuffs, or he can debuffs. He can clear buffs. And it's crazy. Like, he has so much stuff, but the one reason, like the actually, I'm just gonna read it from here because, like, there's more than one reason. Like, you know, he's crazy strong. Like, his abilities are crazy strong, but it's like, you know, he just doesn't have any real damage potential. Like, his cross slash is extremely weak. It doesn't really do that much damage at all. His finishing touch really doesn't do that much damage either. And, like, the worst part about it is if you're really not running him with a bravery barrier, like, it can take him a while to ramp up to an actual good HP attack with his cross slash. And I think that's the biggest problem for him. Like, he just doesn't have any real reliable damage source. Like, it takes him so long to ramp up if you don't have a bravery battery. Like, it's like, it's crazy. Like, before I was using Echo, like, it would take me so long to actually ramp up. Like, there are turns that I would just have to sit there, like, you know, I'd get a paralysis on the boss, and I'd have to sit there bravery attacking to finally, like, get him to be, you know, around, like, the 4,000 bravery. And don't get me wrong, like, my passives for Cloud, my artifacts are really good, but it's just like, it's even then, it's still, like, I still have to wait and bravery attack before I cross slash, because otherwise I'm just not gonna do max damage. So, and then the other thing about it is too, like, his passives are, like, really, really trash. Like, his passives don't really help him with anything at all. Like, his passives, like most passives, you're gonna have unequipped to equip for artifact passives, which is just not good in general. Like, if he had better passives, he'd probably be a better character. But he would definitely need a lot of attack, a lot of cross slash passives to make him really viable, which I don't have. But it's like, you know, even then, even with those passives, I still feel like he wouldn't be able to do enough on-demand damage to make him better than S tier right now. But, you know, he hasn't gotten his Rune Blade yet, which, you know, will make a big difference in his damage potential because of his launch. Now, that's not to say that because his damage potential is not as high as other characters, it doesn't mean that he can't give damage potential to his team. Like, you know, because he can launch, not only does it raise his summon gauge faster, but it also gives like, if you're running with a bravery battery, it gives your team a chance to dump that bravery, so you can continue to just dump damage out onto the enemies. You know what I mean? So he's really good in that respect. He's very strong, but just not strong enough to be an SS tier, even with all the stuff that he has. So now moving on to the A tier. Now, the way I organized this on the forum post, like, you know, I felt like S tier and SS tier needed a lot more constructive reasoning for why these characters were in these categories, because they're so controversial. Like, you know, these top two tiers are very controversial, and there's a lot of arguments you can give for why characters don't belong here or there. But definitely, I felt like they needed to be explained more than the rest. So that's why it took so long to explain them. But from here on, it'll probably be a lot more. It'll just be a lot of pros and cons for each character. That'll kind of just give you an idea of why they're in A tier and below. So let's start off with Ramza, because that's just where he's at. Ramza, he's a god tier buffer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he a god tier buffer. I don't want to say he's god tier. Like, that's a very bad way of explaining him. He's not god tier. He's good. He's an amazing buffer. Okay. He uses galvanize, which used to be like what I don't remember they changed the name of it, but it used to be called something. But anyways, it provides the team, like, you know, again, this, like, all these characters are, you know, with the idea that they have all their weapons passives and stuff like that. With his 35 CP, it literally gives like the whole team like a 30% attack buff or something like that. It's crazy. It's a really huge attack buff, and it also gives him bravery regen. He can boost his own bravery attack speed, his bravery attack and speed with his shout ability, and his passives are also really his innate passives are also really good. Like, you know, he has the what is it called, the strongest squire or whatever. That's the one that I'm talking about mostly, but there's other passives as well that boost all his other stats. And he can do a lot of bravery damage. Like, he can shave a lot of bravery with a bravery attack. Biggest problems, it takes him 2 whole turns before he can actually do something useful for the team. That's the biggest problem with Ramza. It takes him a pretty long time to ramp up to an HP attack because he doesn't have anything in between that timing. He doesn't have any bravery plus HP attack, you know. So that's the biggest problem there too. He has a low max bravery base. Like, you know, you really have to put a lot of work into him to actually have him be strong. You know what I mean? Like sure, he has a lot of these passives that are very strong, but you have to like invest time into getting a lot of good artifacts to make it even better. But otherwise, he's pretty basic and the only thing that he would really have going for him is his galvanize, which is pretty much why you would bring him in the first place. So moving on, we move on to to Terra, who I've recently seen do some work because of a friend of mine on the forums, Hero. Shout out Hero. So Terra, what is she good at? Why is she A tier? Okay, so here's it's pretty controversial, you know. Like, I mean, I've seen how strong she is, and trust me, I know that Terra is very strong. But so let's look at her pros. She has some crazy, like, I'm talking about, like, if you go and look at her stats on the what is it called, the Dissidia database, like her stat makeup is just insane. Like, I think she caps out in like 3 or 4 different categories. Like, she is really really strong. She's a very strong mage. Okay, she hits like a truck. Like, literally, like, you use meteor, you can be like at 4,000 bravery, your max cap is like 9 to 10,000, boom, she's capped instantly. She is crazy strong. She's super strong. Her abilities, like, you know, when she's chanting her meteor, or she's chanting her what's the other one called, the meltdown, she gets really high turn rate. So she can cast it, and then usually when she casts the chant, it'll give her another turn right away afterwards, so that she can just cast meteor again or meltdown or whatever right afterwards. And if you have the rotation down right, you can just keep, you know, doing this over and over. But and then her innate passives, you know, she has the trance boost. You know, you you have to get a lot of good artifacts to make the trance boost worth it. But, like, dude, getting like 6-star trance boost, she becomes like a god of damage. Like, she's amazingly strong, and she can also buff and debuff the enemies. So she's very strong. She's definitely like A+. If I had to put her anywhere, she's definitely in the A+ tier, somewhere in that category. Maybe even S tier. But then because of her cons, like, I kind of just can't really put her in S tier. She needs more than, like, she could need up to not up to. She needs 2 turns or more, depending on what you have for a team, to actually ramp up her damage abilities. Like, I've seen, I've run, like, again, bringing up a friend of mine that I've run recently with to co-op. Like, you know, I've noticed that sometimes he has the person playing has to, like, you know, bravery attack once or twice sometimes, just to be able to chant, so that the chant actually boosts their bravery up to the point where they can actually use the attack, because we don't have like a bravery battery, you know, which sucks. That's the biggest flaw in her kit right now. But I know in the future she does get a bravery plus HP attack, which brings me to another point. She doesn't have a bravery plus HP attack yet, so that's like the biggest problem with her right now. But once she does get it, she'll become amazing. She'll definitely become, most likely, like, if I had to paint a picture, she'd probably become SS tier from that point forward. And then again, like, the other con is, like, you have to have probably, like, the best artifacts on her to make her decent, to make her not decent, make her good, to make her worth using. That's the other thing that you would need to have her on your team and be successful. Like, you have to have the, you know, some of the best artifacts that are available to her to make her really viable as a character to play. Moving on to Ashe. You know, I was preaching this girl, and I still preach her. Like, I still love Ashe. Like, she's still like one of the main characters that I bring with me to a lot of these events and a lot of these outside missions. Her stat makeup is pretty well round. You know, she has a good balance of all her stats. She's an amazing buffer. Okay, like, everybody knows this. She buffs magic and physical damage. She has her abilities do like some crazy damage. You know, her Nord Swain, not so much, but her Heaven's Wrath can literally pump out some serious pain to the enemies. So she usually caps out pretty easily. She can pair well with a lot of characters. Like, you bring her usually on any team, and she fits right in. Doesn't matter what team, what kind of comp you're bringing along, unless you have a bravery battery. And even then, it's kind of like, I'm not really sure. But if you bring her to if you bring her with you, like, on a Titus Vaughn or Lightning Titus, like, she works out really well because she can buff their attack even further. And like I was saying with Seymour, you know, she buffs his magic attack. Really makes him excel even more than he already does. And she also has some debuffs. Like, you know, she could debuff speed and max bravery. Those are some other things that complement her kit as well. Her problems, though, like, what are her problems? She has no bravery plus HP attack. Also, just like Terra, you know, just like a lot of these characters, which is what heavily weighs them down when I'm putting them into their spots in the tier list. Like, you know, bravery plus HP attacks are pretty much like the norm right now in the speed meta. Like, if you don't have one, it kind of just slows the whole rundown as a whole, and it's generally not wanted overall. But, you know, there's certain characters that you can live without them having that yet. Ashe is one of those characters because of the buffs that she brings. Similar to Ramza, you bring them because you want them to buff. You don't really expect them to be doing so much damage. Like, you're bringing them just to buff. But overall, she's a good character without her bravery plus HP attack. But that's one of the reasons why. Her innate passives suck because it's like they require you to get, like, you know, 50% of your max health, and it's like, I don't know why these passives even exist. Like, it's not like she has a taunt for the enemies to actually target her. And even if they were targeting her, half the time the enemies are going to be broken. So it's like, you know, you're not really going to get that use out of it. And if you have a healer, you know, that's it's not going to work anyways because they're just going to get healed up. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not really sure why they keep making passives like this. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And her passives are actually good if they would just take out the 50% HP requirement, because it raises initial. I think it's initial and max bravery of all teammates once she reaches 50%. So it's like why? Like, I just don't understand. Like, why can't you just give her that? You know, she already has a low max bravery stat. Like, just give her some extra max bravery. And then my final thing that I have to say about her is that without her 15 CP or her 35 CP, she's actually useless. Like, that's the way. If this tier list was based on, like, some people, like, don't have her 15 or 35 CP weapons, like, literally you might as well just throw her in, like, D or F tier, because, like, she's just literally, like, I don't know, she just sucks without it. So it's without her 15 to 35 CP weapons, but luckily this tier list involves both. But, you know, that's just kind of my way of showing, like, you know, if you don't have her stuff, like, she actually sucks. So it's, you know, it's, anyways, moving on. Vincent. Now, this guy is actually, like, he's actually seen a lot more use lately because of his kit. Like, his kit's actually very, very good. So, what does Vincent do? Like, what makes Vincent A tier? Well, first of all, he has a lot of bravery, like a lot of max bravery, like probably I'd say probably like the most in the game. In comparison to like Prish, like he probably has like I want to say even higher max bravery than Prish does. He has some crazy strong debuffs. Like his debuffs are like crazy, and his self buffs are pretty good too. Like his self buffs buff his max bravery and all that stuff. His debuffs like literally like can stop an enemy from doing any damage to your team at all, which can and can't, which might and might not be a good thing. If you're trying to go for quick kills, like you prefer for the enemies to be able to break your allies, so you can get faster summons and co-op or whatever. But you know, in general, like in solo, like he's insanely strong because of that. His abilities can hit really hard, and he can cap bravery quickly. But if you keep spamming his abilities, that he obviously runs out of abilities pretty quickly. And then the final thing that makes him really good is that he pairs really well with characters that can use fire and lightning abilities, because his debuffs actually involve imperiling damage, or lightning and fire damage imperiling, from FFB references, guys. And then his the reasons why I think he's an A tier and why he can't be anything higher than that at the moment is because he just has so much ramp up time. Like it can take him like 2 or 3 turns just to get an HP attack off, if you're not running a bravery battery, that is. His innate passives require him to also have low HP, which in general suck. It sucks. Like I said before, I don't know why they keep making these passives where they require you to have low HP, because we don't have any bosses that really do anything like that now anyways. So I don't know why they keep well, I mean, maybe it'll show up, maybe it'll it's still just a niche passive. Even if in the future we have enemies that do an obscene amount of HP damage to our teams, it's still just a niche. And then the other thing was, he could be a detriment if you play him wrong. Don't be one of those guys. Don't like, he can, like, there's some players out there that literally they'll use like deadly beast fire. They'll use the lightning, I can't think of the name. The lightning shot. And then they'll just keep bravery attacking and bravery attacking and bravery attack. It's like, just use your abilities. Just use your abilities. If you're in co-op, just use your abilities, guys. Don't be one of those people that just turn eats for no reason. Just he's already slow enough as a character because it takes so long to max out his bravery. Just don't be one of those guys. And then the last thing that I have to say about that is that he just doesn't have any bravery plus HP attacks. So it's like, you know, he can do a lot of these abilities, but he doesn't have anything to help channel that damage into an HP attack. So it's just he's good, but he's good at what he does, but he's just not strong enough to be anything higher than A tier right now. And Aerith, you know, this is the one that I have to say that I was most uncertain about. Like, honestly, if I could change this list from right now, I mean, even going into the future, like she's already changing positions. Because at the time of me, you know, putting this list together, I had very small information, or a very small amount of information on Aerith, because not many people pulled for her and her weapons, because, you know, there's better stuff coming up soon. You know what I mean? So what is she? Why is and if I could change her now, I'd probably put her in S tier. That's probably the only difference that the only change that I would probably make to this list right now. As of like the day after I made the list. Why? Well, let's see. Let's look at her stuff. Like, her base stats are actually very good for what her kit actually needs. Like, she has a lot of initial bravery, a lot of a good amount of max bravery and stuff like that. So she has a lot of good stuff in that category just off the bat. Her Prayer of Citra makes her a strong bravery battery, because it turns her bravery attack into bravery attack plus, and I think it lasts for like 8 turns. So you have 8 turns of her being a bravery battery, which this is what I was saying before. What makes her high tier, what could make her really high tier, is the fact that she can be a bravery battery for an extended period of time. Like, if I had to put Eiko versus Aerith, Eiko beats her in the speed department. Like, if you were going for quick kills, Eiko wins. If you're looking at a long fight, like a really long drawn out fight, Aerith wins, hands down. Doesn't matter. But because we're in the middle of a speed meta and it's all about, like, you know, who can do what the fastest, Eiko wins simply because of that. So if I had to put her anywhere from this point forward, I'd probably be an S tier. She also has a revive. this is the other thing that she that's really good about her kit. Her prayer Citra, I think, is the one that revives as well. So little joke there. But anyways, she yeah, the revive, it's pretty niche. Like, you know, if you it can come in clutch if you're doing like lost chapters or something like that, and you know you ended up making a mistake, so it can actually help you out a lot in that respect. She also has really good bravery or HP and bravery healing, or more. It's better for HP healing than it is bravery. Like the bravery restoration is pretty good, but it's definitely nowhere near as strong as her bravery plus attack. But it also gives her a buff that, you know, gives her more initial bravery, which makes her bravery plus attack even stronger. And then her innate passives are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, her innate passives are like wonders. Like, literally, they made everything perfect for this girl, and I'm you know, I don't blame them for that. Like, Aerith is a very one of the most loved characters, so it's no surprise that she received a lot of love when they made this character in this game. Her only real con is that she got killed by Sephiroth, guys. Like, I mean, let's be honest, there was nothing wrong with this girl in the game, in Final Fantasy VII, or in this game. But, you know, it's just a joke, because honestly I couldn't think of a con for this character. Like, she doesn't really have any serious cons. Like, she's a bravery battery. She does what she does, and she's good at it. She's a very strong healer / bravery battery. So again, you know, definitely she can definitely be S tier in my opinion. But no, when I made this list I put her in A tier because I just didn't have enough information. But she's definitely strong enough to be S tier. But beyond that, I don't think she's beyond S tier. And then let's move on to Hope, the child, the man child. So what does Hope do? Like, Hope is crazy good against protecting your team from enemies. Like, you know, he has, you know, his Protect Ga and his Shell Ga. So he prevents a lot of magic and physical damage from coming into your team. He has some pretty decent innate stats. Like, you know, he has some pretty high max bravery, some pretty good speed, and initial bravery. Like, there's a lot of characters, like a lot of supports / bravery batteries don't have those stats, don't have good stats in those areas. So that's always good to it's always good to have for a support like him. His innate passives work really well for what they do. Like, you know, he gets like +1 turns on his Protect Ga. He can give +1 turns to all his allies, you know, to his buffs or whatever. And his abilities also have a really good amount of uses. Like, you know, he gets 6 and 6. Like, you know, so he has basically two different sets of abilities that both give bravery back to the team and protect them. And they, you know, they both have 6 uses. That's a lot of bravery that you have. So he can definitely last for a very long period of time. Over he can last for a long period of time in a longer fight. So what isn't good about what isn't good about Hope? Well, to be honest, the only thing that's really stopping him from being a amazing bravery battery is the fact that he needs a lot of attack. Like, his innate attack stat is abysmal. Like, literally, he has like no attack. Like, it's literally like a 2-star or something like that. So you have to really work on getting those 108 attack artifacts. And you have to also get his 4-star weapon passives to really see him shine. Like, he has to have everything built up perfectly. If you don't have those things, he's gonna suck as a bravery battery. So that's the one thing that's the only reason that he's probably an A tier, not an S tier. Because for him to be an actual good bravery battery, he needs those things that he doesn't have, and you have to like work really hard to get that, because they're not there innately. You know what I mean? It's nothing like Aerith, where all her stuff is basically just there from the get-go. You get her weapons, you level her up, and she's literally, you know, bravery battering for your team like no other. But Hope, like, you have to go out, get her passives, or get his passives, get a lot. And pray to God that you get a whole bunch of 108 attacks, because if you don't, it's gonna suck overall. But that's pretty much it for him. And then he's also a crybaby. A crybaby mama's boy. We all know that for those of us who have played Final Fantasy 13. So moving on, let's move on to our homeboy Ace. You know, the Yu-Gi-Oh card duelist. The other Yu-Gi-Oh card duelist. The only one that's the only one that gives Setzer a problem. Sorry. So what is Ace good at? Okay, so overall, his Ace's initial initial stats, like his max bravery, are very good, and he has a really good attack and speed stat. So he's in general, he already has some good stats for what he does, because that's what he's going to be doing. He's a decently strong HP attacker. He also is one of the few characters that actually has bravery plus HP attacks. His innate passives also tie in really well with his ability weaving, because we all know that that's what Ace has to do when he's doing his rotations. Like, you have to go from using the what is it called, the burst, and then you have to go into like the mega spiral. I think it's called mega spiral, something like that. So you have to keep weaving, and you have to understand how to do that, which brings me to his cons. It can be hard to weave his abilities sometimes, because it's like, if you like have to do a bravery attack somewhere, like if you it can really throw off his rotation, because it's like, you end up with like one card for bravery attack or something like that, and then like from that point onward, like if you use a burst, like it'll give you all three, but do you really want to waste that burst, or do you want, like, you know what I mean? Like it gets into that complicated territory. But then it's also like, if you have to use if you had just used burst the turn before, and then the boss gets like some crazy bravery back or something like that, and then you're already at max bravery, and then you have to use mega burst at max, or like not max bravery, but like, because mega burst does a lot of damage. But if mega burst, or not mega burst, but burst itself does a lot of damage, and if you have to use mega burst the turn after, like it can kind of ruin the rotation, because it's gonna take you 2 turns to actually do an HP attack, which can suck. So like his ability weaving is just like, I don't know, it's pretty difficult in my opinion. Anyways, there's probably a lot of people that are just like, what are you talking about? But that's just the way that I see him. I've seen a lot of people struggle with his rotations. And then the other thing is too, he literally provides absolutely nothing for your team. He doesn't do any debuffs, he doesn't buff anybody, he doesn't do anything. He's just straight up raw damage, and that's pretty much all he does, which is kind of surprising, because he's such a supportive character in like the City of NT, and in his own game, like, he's such a supportive character. But it does, in this game, they pretty much just made him pure raw damage. Oh yeah. Because his abilities do so much damage, it's really easy for him to overflow, going from burst into mega spiral, or from spiral combo into, there we go, I think that's what it's called, spiral combo, from spiral combo into like mega burst. Like it's very, very easy to overflow his bravery with his abilities. So that's another con that I have with him. Even though his max bravery is pretty high, like he overflows really easily. So let's move on to the B tier category. So to start with, there's a lot of characters here that are in B tier. So let's see. We have Zidane. Why is Zidane B tier? Like, Zidane he's good. Like, I love this guy, but it's like I can't put him any higher, because it's like they haven't given him anything to really make him stand out. So, his Stellar Circle 5, it does a lot of damage, but it's like if you don't have like his innate passive, like the Gentle Knight, active throughout the whole time, or if you don't have it, if you can't activate it, it really, it's so difficult for me to actually put him any higher because of that. Like, and I'll talk about it in his cons. Like, his abilities, beyond this, I'll talk about this in a second here when I get to the cons, because there's a reason why like these two can't, like, none of his abilities actually can work really well because of the cons that he has. So beyond that, his abilities, he has a speed and defense up buff for himself, but his abilities also put a debuff on the enemies that reduce their defense and their speed as well. And his final pro is that he actually has some really high turn rates on his abilities. But now his cons are pretty, like I was saying before, or we're going to tie into why he's not anything higher than B tier for me. For one, he has low ability uses. Like, you can argue that he has like six Stellar Circles, but it's like, Stellar Circle, it's not even a bravery plus HP attack, you know what I mean? It's just straight up bravery damage. And then his free energy is it can help him get from like, from like 3,500 bravery to like 5k bravery to max out. It's something like that, but it's like, it's still like not not super. There's still not that many uses. Like he only has like 4 on his free energy. Literally his most useful passive, the Gentle Knight, requires 2 girl characters on his party, which I mean technically won't be too hard to get, but depending on the team makeup, it can be actually hard to, or depending on the team you're trying to go for, it can be actually kind of hard to do that. You know what I mean? Like you like forcing us to have to pick 2 girls and put them onto the team. It can be kind of difficult to do that. You know, it's like, you know, sometimes you're bringing him because you need strong physical attackers, and there's a lot of girl characters that don't use physical attacks, like for example, like Eiko. Like Eiko's pure magic. Like, you know, you have, like, yeah, she, like, if you need a physical attacker, but she, like, you know, I don't know. It's you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Like, it's the fact that he requires 2 girls in the party to get that passive to work kind of sucks. But that's you know, that's whatever. And then he on top of the fact that he also has, not on top of the fact that he has no Bravery plus HP attack is another reason why I can't put him any higher. And I don't think he ever gets a Bravery plus HP attack, so that's another thing. And then on top of that, like, you have to have some insanely crazy passives to make him even viable. Because I have him pretty decked out, but even then he still doesn't, because my artifact passives aren't the greatest in the world. He doesn't do the damage that I would like him to do overall. So it kind of sucks. But if you do have that, like, you know, he can do some pretty decent damage. But without it, he's kind of an character. So moving on to Vanille. Why is Vanille in B tier? Well, she's a really good dispeller. Decent bravery battery. You know, what else can be said about that? She can debuff attack and defense with her weapon passive and her what's it called? Her deprotect, I think it's called. So she gets deprotect. And then she has some pretty high innate stats. Her initial bravery and max bravery / speed are pretty good. Her cons are just well, she's very niche. You know what I mean? Like I talked about her before at the beginning of the video. She's a very niche character. You won't really need to bring her that often. She also needs she's kind of similar to Hope in the fact that she needs a lot of attack to be decent at being a bravery battery. And even when those requirements are met, she's still not a great bravery battery. You know what I mean? She's not spectacular by any means, even when you have that, you know, accomplished. And then her innate passives are also like pretty terrible. Like I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but when I looked through the list of her innate passives, like nothing stood out as being useful to her kit or to her in general as a character. So that's one thing to look out for. So moving on from Vanille, because I don't feel like Vanille needs much more said than that. She's pretty, like, for what she does, like her explanation is just like, what else can I really say about her? So anyways, moving on to Yuna. So what is Yuna good for? Okay, so Yuna, she's pretty much here because she's not a she's just an average bravery battery. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's also very niche because she has this Spellga. Her stats are pretty good. Are pretty good. They're distributed very good for what she needs. Dispelga, like I said, like, you know, it's very niche. Like you won't really need Dispelga for a lot of the content. Mostly just for Vanille's Lost Chapter, to, like, you know, for the Marlboro. That's pretty much why she's used there. But other than that, like, she's not a strong enough bravery battery to reliably bring along for you know, later content, or for the content that we're facing now. She's just not very strong for it. And the other good thing about her is that she also has a lot of like, her abilities have a lot of turn rate. Like, she's actually a very fast character with her abilities, because a lot of her passives, her innate passives, give her turn rate plus on most of her abilities. And then her cons is that she can literally do no damage. If you're planning to bring her to your team, expect her to do absolutely no damage to the enemies whatsoever. Her attack stat, even if you were to try and buff it up as much as you could, her attack stat sucks so bad. It's abysmal. The other bad thing about her is that her innate passives, not stats, her innate passives really are just bad overall. They're pretty unnecessary. You really won't need them. Like, you know, I think she gets like something called Clear Veil that reduces the chance of being debuffed. Like, are you really? And it doesn't even last for it's not even like just in general. Like, I think it's only for like the first 3 turns of a wave or something like that, or the first 3 turns of a wave, something like that. I think is what it was. So it's like, why? Like, you know, it's stuff like that that's like, you know, they're very, very niche. Like, you don't need that for everything, or in general you just don't even need to use it. So that sucks. And then her max bravery is also very low. Like, she's a bravery battery, and that's the worst thing that you can have as a bravery battery, is having really low max bravery, because you're giving bravery to your team, and you know, because of the fact that she doesn't restore that much bravery, like she can cap herself out in like two of her Isunagas or whatever, and it's like, then she has the HP attack while her team is doing other stuff. So, but her max bravery is just really low. And lastly, like, you know, her job can be done better by like an Echo, by like an Echo or an Aerith. You know what I mean? Like, her job is just, they can do her job and better. Except, what I mean is, like, if she, like, as a bravery battery, not as like a dispeller or anything like that. As a bravery battery, they do her job better. I probably should have worded that better, but that's what I meant. Anyways, moving on to Cryle. I think that's how you say her name. Her pros. Now, I really like Cryle as a character. I really like her as a character, and I honestly wish that I saw more of her in co-op play, because I feel like she's a really decent character. She provides an elemental, like, if you've been playing, you probably seen her already. She gives your team a buff that basically allows them to do even more. If they have an elemental strength against the enemy, they allow them to do more damage to those enemies. It's really strong. Like, it's actually very, very useful, especially for characters like Echo. If she has a type advantage against an enemy and you put that on her, like, Echo's gonna give your team like like, there was like a post a few days ago that showed like Echo doing like 9,999 damage on a type advantage enemy. It was crazy. It was pretty crazy. Like, you know, they used Cryle and some other stuff, and she was able to get that high. So it's a crazy buff, but it's like, you know, she's just not very used. She's not used very often. Her abilities can buff her max bravery, but then there's also like 2 different play styles to her kit. Basically, you can either play her as a bravery battery, or you can play her as an attacker, because she has Thunder. Thunder buffs her max bravery, on top of her already decent max bravery. But essentially, the reason that I say that she has 2 different playstyles is because for her first ability, the bravery restore, the elemental whatever it's called. I don't remember what the name is called, but essentially, it goes based off of her initial bravery. However, her Thunder goes based off of her attack, obviously, because it's an attack ability. So, like, you have to either build her specifically for one or the other to try and get in as many artifact passives for that particular ability, or you can just go like 50-50 on, like, you know, you go for like the initial bravery stat plus getting some 108 attacks in there. But overall, you're probably just going to want to go for one or the other, and in particular, I would probably prefer her to be a bravery battery, because I feel like she would be pretty good at not that she would be, she actually is pretty good at being a bravery battery if you have her as that build. Her initial bravery, or she has a really high initial bravery stat, and with some pretty good speed. And her max bravery, like I said before, like, she can self buff her max bravery, and her max bravery is already really high. So let's move on to what her cons are. She has a really low base attack, which is why, like, you know, if you're gonna go the attack route build, you really have to build upon that, because she really doesn't have that much. Even though her abilities do a lot of damage, it's still gonna take you a while to build up to that, to build up her attack even better. So and then her other bad thing is like, you know, just like any other characters that require mastery, it takes like 2 to 4 turns before she finally masters all her abilities at most. You know, she has to use 2 of each to finally get them mastered. So at most, it's going to take at least 4 turns to get everything mastered before they start doing the most that they can. The other bad thing is, like, she just gets outperformed by many other bravery batteries. Specifically, like, characters like Yuna. Like, Yuna can literally just keep Isuna-ing and the entire team is constantly at max bravery. Like, she has a lot of uses. She can just keep pumping out max bravery, or just not max bravery. She can keep pumping out bravery to the team. And let's just not even jump into like what Aerith and Eiko can do. Like, they just do her job as a bravery battery better, similar to she gets outdone by Aerith and Eiko. Like I said before, it's the same thing with Cryo. And then, like I said, the other con to her is that not a lot of people use her, even though she's a really good unit. I think she's a really good character overall. She's just not used. I like, especially against elemental bosses. Like for whose was it? Like I think that she would have been amazing for what's it called, for Ash's event, like with the Shadow Dragon, the Shadow Bone Dragon. I think she would have been amazing for that. You bring her along with like Vaughn and Ash, and like you got yourself a pretty strong team looking there, a pretty strong looking team. But like a lot of people just don't use her because they're just like, they feel like she's useless. But that elemental buff is actually extremely strong. And then she also doesn't have a Bravery plus HP attack for her Thunder, so that's another issue that she has. And then we're moving on to Baltier. Now Baltier, there's not really much to say about this guy. He has some pretty good max bravery stats. He's actually pretty fast. Like, he's actually a pretty fast character. His main niche is that he can dispel abilities by stealing them and putting them onto himself. His innate passives give him, again, they give him max bravery and speed. And he can actually also debuff speed with a low chance. And his biggest pro is that he can actually do a lot of damage with his what's that ability called? I can't think of what his first ability is called. It's the shot. He has one of his. It's the one ability. It's not the. I can't think of the name of the ability, but it's like his first ability, which is like the one shot. The one shot bravery attack does a lot of damage, especially with his 35 CP. It can be pretty devastating. But his cons are just they're very obvious. Like, he has a really low base attack stat. Even though he hits really hard, his attack stats are still very low. He's just niche because he's just like Vanille, where in the fact where it's like he's only really useful for stealing buffs, or if an enemy needs to be dispelled or something like that. Like he shines versus that. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much what he's good for now, anyways. And also on top of that, he also doesn't have a bravery plus HP attack, which sucks. Like, he's kind of like Zidane, where it's like you use that one ability that does a lot of bravery damage, and then the next turn you have to use his other one that multiplies his bravery so they can cap out and do his HP attack finally. So moving on to Snow. He's probably like the best tank in the game right now, but it still doesn't mean anything. Like even though Snow is a very strong character right now, because we're in the middle of a speed meta, because he's a tank, unfortunately, all he's doing is slowing your team down if you decide to bring him, because there's nothing that really requires you to bring a tank in the game right now, unless you're just starting out and you don't have anything better than him. That's pretty much why he's B tier, because his niche is just that he's a tank. He's very niche because of that. So why is he his ability, like, what are his pros? He has Steel Guard, which makes him super tanky, because it like, I think it was like something that it multiplies in defensiveness as he takes more damage, something like that. So it's crazy. Like, I've seen this guy only take like 10 damage from like stronger bosses. It's like it's pretty crazy. And on top of that, it's also a taunt. So he has a Bravery plus HP attack, which is always nice to have, especially on a tank, which is very rare. And then the one thing that I noticed that, the difference between like him and some other characters that get stuff like this, his Cheat Death innate passive is actually useful because he's a tank. Like, there's some characters that have this thing where it's like can survive one hit kills or one hit deaths, something like that. It's like, why for some of these damage dealers? But for tank, like for him, it's actually very, very useful because you actually want him to be taking the brunt of those attacks. So if he gets one-shotted, he's not gonna get one-shotted, So there's a chance that you could survive a bad situation because of that one passive. His Frost Bravery plus HP attack, it's like the I can't think of the name. There's a lot of the name of the abilities I can't think of off the top of my head. And I'm sorry about that, guys. But his frost attack, the HP attack, it returns bravery. So even though he can dump off his bravery, and still potentially not get broken like many other characters can. Like if I were to compare him to Warrior of Light, like sure he can put up a shield, you know, to a barrier to prevent himself from getting broken like that. But if the boss is really strong, like, you know, there's a chance that the shield can break and then he'll get broken. But and it's the same thing with I guess essentially in a way, him and Warrior of Light are the same in that aspect, where Warrior of Light has a shield, but Snow restores regen to himself. But the only difference is that Snow, when he has Steel Guard, also reduces that damage. But overall, like I think that's really good. A really good aspect of his ability. Like, you know, he restores bravery to himself on top of dishing it out. So he might not get broken after, because, you know, like sometimes he's the last person in your turntable. And then the enemies attack, and then they're all targeting him. And then, you know, if you just HP tagged with like a Warrior of Light, but you didn't bury yourself, like, he's gonna get broken right away, and he's gonna get, you know, beat up really badly. But Snow, because he got that extra bravery regen back, there's a chance that he might not get broken because he can tank those bravery attacks without getting broken. So that's but anyways, that's why I think that's a good ability. And his innate stats are also really high. Like, he has really good defense, really good HP, which are typical because he's a tank. And like I was saying previously, his cons are that he's a tank, which is extremely niche because we don't have a need for tanks right now in the current state of the game. And I think his biggest problem as well is that he even though he's a tank, his max bravery is really low, and he also has some really low attack, like which is pretty obvious for reasons. Like, you don't want your tank, especially the tank that has a bravery plus HP attack, to have really high attack or max bravery, because then they'd be doing crazy amounts of damage to the enemies. So on top of that, he's also very slow because he's a tank. You know what I mean? Like, you expect like tanks are always going to be slow, but, you know, those are just some cons that I had to put in there for why he's in B tier. But other than that, like, I mean, Snow's an amazing tank. Like, I don't particularly dislike this guy. But as of right now, because we don't actually need tanks in the game, that's why I put him in B tier. But other than that, like, let's say we did have a boss or, you know, a lost chapter that required a tank, Snow would definitely be, you know, top choice. He'd definitely be higher up in the tier list. Like, but other than that, because we don't have anything like that right now, I have to put him here in B tier. So now, what is so let's move on to Laguna and what makes him good, because a lot of people wonder, like, why Laguna is actually so strong later on. And Laguna is actually a very strong character in general right now. Like, even without his 35 CP, I still think he's an amazing unit, an amazing character to bring along, especially if you don't have debuffers like Tidus or Seymour at your disposal, but you got like you know, Laguna's 15 CP out of this recent weekly banner. You know, he's very good. And why is that? Like, you know, he has because he's a dedicated debuffer, like, he debuffs defense, speed, and attack, similar to Tidus. And I think they're the same amount of turns as well. Surprisingly, he also has a really good amount of attack and max bravery for somebody who's a debuffer. Like, so he can actually do a decent amount of damage while he's debuffing as well. He can also raise his team's speed and max bravery because of his other 15 CP passive that he got during, I think it was Leviathan's trial. I think it was during his Leviathan trial that he got that other 15 CP passive. So that's good. And then he also has some really strong innate passives that all revolve around his attacks, because they all buff his AoE abilities, which that's all he has. He has his shotgun that hits everything, and he has his grenade that hits everything. So all of his abilities will be hitting strong, even if there's a lot of enemies or even just one. Because if there's one, he has a passive that multiplies his damage by like 1.6, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So he's gonna be hitting really hard no matter what, regardless. And then his sorry guys, I read that. His only real con is that he doesn't have a bravery plus HP attack. Other than that, he doesn't really have any other issues that I can think of right now, because he's really strong overall. If he had a Bravery plus HP attack, which he should be getting with his 35 CP weapon, he'll definitely be brought up to like SS tier. I think, you know, he's gonna be amazing, because there would be no reason to bring Tidus once we get his 35 CP. So moving on, let's see, Setzer. Oh boy, what is good about Setzer? So Setzer, he actually has a really good amount of max bravery and speed, innately. Like his innate stats are pretty good. They're really balanced out for what he needs. Setzer's personality and his persona in general. He's always tried to cheese and get away with everything that has, like, I don't want to say cheating. It kind of seems like it's cheating, but that's not really what it is. But, like, you know, he's been known for cheesing a lot of stuff, and it's no different in this game. In this game, he can cheese bosses by freezing them with his snap. I can't think of the name, but it basically locks an enemy's bravery. So basically, it'll freeze them. Like, you know, once, like, let's say an enemy has like once an enemy gets broken, he uses it. Their bravery will never go above 0 for the duration of his debuff. Okay, so basically, for the entire time, like, you can literally let them break you. They'll get no bravery back, and you can continue to break them over and over and over, and essentially cheese them by getting a whole bunch of bravery breaks and getting a whole bunch of bravery back for your team. So he's really strong when it comes to cheesing certain bosses like that. He has AOE and single target attacks. You know, he has his red cards, which, you know, his attack abilities are his offensive potential. That's what I'm trying to say here. His offensive potential is very low currently. Like, he hits like a wet noodle, especially if you don't have good artifacts for him. But like, you know, he's okay. Like, his main niche is just that freeze ability. Like, that's what makes him good. And the other good thing about him is that he also raises your team's max bravery. He's one of those rare characters, like I said before with Eiko, he's one of those rare characters that can buff the team with max bravery, which is what makes him good. And then innately, his innate passive gives him a really strong buff, because he doesn't have very many ability uses. Like like I'll talk about that in a second here in the cons. Once he runs out of abilities, like, he becomes really strong. So that's one good reason. And then his cons, he is super weak. Like I said previously, his innate attack stat is like super low. Like, it's literally abysmal. I think he has like a 1-star attack, if I'm not mistaken. He has like no attack. He's super weak. He has like no ability uses. He has like almost no ability uses whatsoever. So you have to be really sparing with when you use those abilities. No bravery plus HP attack yet. However, if you have seen him on JP, you know exactly what kind of monster he becomes once he gets his red card HP or bravery plus HP attack. And as it stands right now, currently in the, like, with him, like, he really relies on his team. Like, he can cheese the bosses by making them go, like, have 0 bravery, or you know what I mean. But he relies on his team to actually back him up on that one exploit. So you have to have a teammate that can buff, or that can bravery battery really hard for him, or, you know, other teammates that can do a lot of damage, that can exploit that weakness that he put onto the enemies. So that's how I see him. He really needs his team to back him up when it comes to being able to succeed for him to be able to succeed. So let's move on to Lael, the final character that I have here in the B tier. So let's see, Lael. I can't really say anything bad about him, and he kind of fits into the same category as Laguna, because his stats are really good. You know, for what he is, he actually has like a 4-star stat in like attack speed and max bravery, which is good. You know what I mean? Like, that's always good, especially for what he does. He's a catapult. That's what he does. That's what his job is. He's similar to Cecil, but right now Cecil does his job, you know, infinitely better, because he can't reliably launch like Cecil can yet. He puts debuffs on the enemies that, you know, make them easier to launch. However, he can't launch them right away like Cecil can. he has a bravery plus HP attack that makes it easier to launch, but will become much more easy when he finally does get his 35 CP. But what that, but I don't think he'll actually get his 35 CP for a while. So that's the only thing that really sucks about it. And then his innate passives increases his base stats a lot, so that's always good. And then his cons is that like I said previously, like, you know, he doesn't have a reliable launch yet, because it can take a while to actually be able to launch, because it's pretty much just lowering that turn count that you need to get a launch right now. And then he doesn't have his 35 CP. That's his other con. He doesn't have his 35 CP, so he can't reliably launch like Cecil can just yet. And then he also doesn't have any self buffs for himself, which sucks. So now, with all that said and done, I'm pretty much moving on to the C tier, which, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not gonna be very descriptive about this, because we all know that these characters, like, what they can do and why they belong here. Nobody denies that these characters belong here, aside from a few of them, which can be argued, but I don't. Because remember, this is where I believe that they belong. So that's why they're here, and I'm not going to really argue a point to why they're here, because I don't view them personally as being very strong yet, anyways. So the first one on our list is Ysh'tola. She's niche because she does some okay damage, but it's damn near impossible. Not impossible, but it's very, very difficult for her to go into rage mode to finally be able to use her abilities. And, you know, anything that has to do with, like, having low HP sucks in general. And because, like, right now we don't have anything that can actually reliably get us or get her to go into that mode, so, you know, it sucks. The next one is Cater, who we just got recently, and Cater's actually decent. Like, she does some decent damage, but she's not she doesn't have anything that she doesn't have bravery plus HP attack to balance out the fact that she has a really strong bravery attack, her blizzard or blizzard shots or whatever, and her dodge is just not useful, because you know, it's like like, if an enemy's not gonna attack you, like, why have the dodge? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's very niche. I don't think it's very useful, but that's why I think so. If she had a bravery plus HP attack, she'd probably be higher, but she doesn't. So very niche. Bart's, I explained this guy earlier. Like, he's very strong, but he's not needed for like 90% of the fights in this game. So it's like, there's no reason to bring him along, because all he's really there for is to shave bravery if a boss can jump up in bravery really fast. So there's really no reason to bring him along. Stainer, he's what more can I say? Even though he got his 35 CP, he's really only still useful versus humans. So he only really shines when you're doing, like, the story missions, or like some of these event bosses that have humanoid bosses as their enemies, which aren't very many, honestly. Like, because most of the co-op events are usually just beasts, so it's like he really doesn't see much use anyways. Then we have Cyan. He's about as ordinary as it gets. He's a decent HP attacker, but he's literally no better than Furion, or he's just a better Furion at this point. Like, they both have strong bravery attack, and then they also have a just okay HP bravery plus HP attack. So that's pretty much all he is to me, in my opinion. Ferris, let me say Ferris. She would be much higher on this tier list if she had a bravery plus HP attack, but since she doesn't, unfortunately, I can't really put her any higher, because she basically does. She has her 35 CP weapon, but Laguna can do her job without a 35 CP weapon. You know what I mean? So why have her? I don't know. Like, even like for the fact that Laguna can be just as good as her with only his 15 CP passive is kind of sad. But I mean, if she had a bravery plus HP attack, she'd be very strong. So I'm not like, that's pretty much why I have her here in this niche tier, because she's a debuffer, and that's pretty much what she's good for. She, like, her bravery shaving is not that good, and all she really is there for is to debuff. And even then, she has to ramp up, because she has to get she has to master her debuffing. So, moving on, we have Zell. He does some pretty decent damage, but he doesn't have his 35 CP weapon yet, so he can't really shine. he can't really shine just yet. So that's why he's there. Ida, even with the global buff that they gave her a little while ago and her 35 CP weapon, she is still super weak compared to like half of the other HP attackers that we have on our list. It's kind of sad, honestly. And then we have Warrior of Light. He's a good tank, but let's be honest, Snow is just better overall. However, I do think that the only time that he actually is better than Snow is when you're facing multiple enemies or bosses. He can taunt multiple enemies to himself because his shield throw, his throw buckler has a very high turn rate, so he can get like 2 throw bucklers in to taunt multiple enemies, while Snow has to like wait. You know what I'm saying? So, moving on, we have Penelo. And, you know, Penelo, she had her 35 CP release recently, but even with her 35 CP weapon and her 15 CP weapon passive, she as a bravery, she gives bravery regen, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it's stronger than Ramza, but it's like, her overall, like, support to the team is just mediocre. It's just not that good. She gives like a 1,000 something bravery regen to the party. She gives healing regen as well, but you know, it's like all those things get done by better characters that can do more on top of that, and it's like outside of those abilities, like she doesn't do anything, so she kind of just sucks. She's just bad. Like her kit is just really bad in my opinion. And then we have Thancred, and I mean Thancred could be higher. I personally don't really dislike this guy. I don't think he's bad by any means. But the fact that he has to rely on having poison up on the boss to get his Braver plus HP attack ability to do more damage is kind of where he falls into that niche role for me, where it's like he can't just pick up and go and do as much damage as he can, you know, right off the bat. He actually has to like set up for it, which kind of sucks. And I've seen him used plenty of times, and there's chances that, you know, he just doesn't get the poison up on the boss. And if he doesn't get the poison up on the boss, he hits like a wet noodle. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you know, he could be better, but he would probably need somebody that can debuff poison onto the enemies for him to see his potential realized. And then we have Ysh'tola, who just got her 35 CP today actually. So it's like, you know, she could potentially change. I haven't done any of the co-op, or I haven't done any co-op with anybody that has her 35 CP yet, so I don't really know how strong she could be. But if I had to make a guess, because it raises her Medica bravery healing or bravery battery potential, she'd probably fit somewhere around B or A, or not B tier. She'd probably fit somewhere in A tier, just like all the other buffers and supports. So now that's you know, that's just my guess, but you know, this tier list is definitely going to be changing as time goes on. So let's move on to the D tier, which, I mean, these guys are very rarely used, and like, you know, they're here for a reason. They're really weak in general. They take a long time to ramp up. They're just not that good overall. So here we have Galuf, and you know, let's just be honest here, Galuf gets out tanked by Snow and Warrior of Light. His kit is just like very awkward to use. Like, you know, he covers his allies, but it's like, okay, and then what? You know, he doesn't really have anything that stops that can reliably do anything for the team, other than, you know, just covering them. And that's like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think he's very good because of that. Like, his kit's just very bad in my opinion. And then we have Rem, whose kit is like just pretty bad in general. She gets her healing can be outdone by pretty much any other healer that we have, like especially like because it's just a heal, because it's just like a cure. It's like Eiko can just put like, sure, she has like instant healing, but it's like, you know, you don't normally need too much instant healing when you have like, you know, passive healers like Eiko. And you know, we just got Aerith, so her instant healing to the whole team, and hers is only a single target, but you know, we have instant healing to the whole team now. So it's like she gets outdone by pretty much everything in every aspect of her kit. And then Tifa, she's just like Vivi, when I explained earlier. Like, she has some pretty niche bravery attacks that only work against, like, you know, that are only strong against like bone or skeleton type enemies or whatever. She doesn't have any HP channel abilities yet. She has very low damage output. Vivi is pretty much the same exact way, where he uses fire abilities, but it takes a while to ramp up, and he's just weak in general. Onion Knight, he has no bravery plus HP attack, so it takes a while for him, and it also takes a long time for him to ramp up his abilities. Because in case you didn't know, he has to like use his abilities over and over to finally boost their lethalness. So it's like a stacking buff that continuously gets better the more he uses it, but it still just takes a long time before he reaches the final outcome of all that. So it's, that's why he's down there. King, same reason as Tifa and Vivi. He has no HP, no HP channel ability. His damage output is decent, but he just has no. His damage potential is just very low. Edge, same thing. Damage potential is very low. He doesn't have any HP plus or Brave plus HP attack or anything like that. He's just very niche. Like, he has a smoke bomb for dodging, but it's like, I mean, it can come in handy if the enemy's targeting him, but you probably won't need it. You probably could just bring somebody better. And Sabin, well, he's just a Ghostbuster. That's pretty much what he's there for. Outside of that, he's just not that great. And then Yang, he's decent. Yang, he was the one that I was thinking about like bumping up a little bit, but then I was like, nah, because he not only does he have really low uses, but the amount of time it takes for him to ramp up, and because of the low ability uses, like, it doesn't make up for the amount of damage he does to the enemies doesn't make up for the fact that it takes so long for him to ramp up. So that takes care of the D tier. And then for F tier, well, we have Shadow and Yuffie, and neither of these two characters provide anything useful for their team. Like I said, I hate Yuffie. I think she's annoying, and she's a thief. I have no qualms with Shadow, but he's just not very strong. None of them have anything that neither of them have their 35 CPs, and neither of them have anything that really contributes anything to the team overall, except for being annoying to their teammates. Because you bring them and everybody just goes, oh, why? So that's pretty much why. That's pretty much the F tier. And then I already explained triple S tier, that they don't have to be explained. They're just triple S tier because they are gods and they are among us. Whew, man, this was a long video to make. Shout out to everybody that gave me input onto my old tier list to make that made this new tier list possible. Because I was kind of biased towards certain characters, so that it helped me to balance out where certain characters should be, and it just helped to overall balance the entire thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this longer, more in-depth tier list. Mind you, in the future, the next tier list that I have coming up for August, after a long period of time has passed, it won't be as long as this one, mostly because I feel like I had to set a foundation for each character right now. You know what I mean? So that way, in the future videos, all I really have to talk about is, oh, why did this character move up and why did this character move down? Whether that be to weapons or buffs or just any little thing like that. I don't like that. That's basically my goal right now, to update every month. So let me know what you guys think of this tier list, and was it up to your expectations? It was actually kind of hard to make this because I didn't know how I wanted to present it to you guys, because I knew it was just going to be a lot of talking, so that's kind of just what it was. But it's like, I hope that it wasn't too bad of a presentation to you guys. But anyways, Lions event just released last night, so keep an eye out for my playthrough on that. And yeah, until next time, bye guys.